of time and space. Everywhere and anywhere, every star that ever was. Where do you want to start?
We've escaped from the moon. We've followed Mr. Spoon. Something moon. Something moon.
So let's follow the space-time visualizer and see what these giant crabs are all about. I'm Iain.
And I'm Mark, and welcome to All of Time and Space.
Oh, that's better. Right, let's get up to speed with where we are in the story. In the far future, a group of humans is living an idyllic existence on a distant planet. Their colony is run like a gigantic holiday camp, and nothing seems to trouble their carefree existence. When one of them claims that the colony is being invaded by hideous monsters, no one takes him seriously, but the doctor's suspicions are immediately aroused. What is the terrible menace that lurks at the heart of this apparent paradise? Why are the colonists unaware of the danger that lies before their very eyes? And what is the Macra terror? Well, we'll find out after this.
And don't forget, our job is to inspire the others, our brave workers who are doing such a dangerous job. All right?
All right!
What do you know?
We all know control is right, and we must obey.
Let them know, let them know.
Let them know they're happy.
Greet the morning with a shout.
Everyone up, the sun is out.
Rah, rah, rah.
Rah, rah, rah.
Oh, that's very good. That's beginning to sound like something. It still needs a bit more clarity, and I think that the girls could... Say, how did you get there?
Oh, well, I was just, as a matter of fact...
Oh, I see. You're one of the dancers.
One of the dancers? Oh, I'm afraid, yes, I'm one of the dancers.
And you've got your dance ready?
My dance? Yes, it's ready.
Well, go ahead. I'll see it now.
You'll see it now.
And don't forget, you have to be very good to get into the Happy Colony finals. We want something gay and cheerful.
Gay and cheerful.
Have you any music?
Oh, no, I don't need it.
Go ahead. We'll pick up the rhythm and clap to it. All right?
All right.
Well, come on. Get on with it. We haven't got all day.
Oh, aye.
And say, that's very good. What do you call it?
The Highland Fling.
Why do you call it the Highland Fling?
Because we finished the dance by flinging ourselves out the door.
Oh, that's very good. Come on now. Rah, 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 rah. Cheers for the colony. Rah, rah.
And welcome back. And we have a returning guest for you today. It's the delightful Nathan Bottomley. Hello, Nathan.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, all the better for seeing you, sir. Nathan is the man of 1,000 podcasts. Is it fair to say?
Well, 5 maybe, but
You must have launched at least 10 since the last time you were on.
Yeah, so the big one is Untitled Star Trek Project, where Joe Ford and I watch a randomly generated episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And we have Jodie into Terror for new Jodie episodes, which will be the first podcast I ever put painlessly to sleep after after October. And we do have another kind of Doctor Who flashcast in the works for when Russell takes over.
Okay.
Of course, there's still flight
That's
for
not
entirety.
a huge surprise. Yeah.
No, that's not unscheduled, is it? But it's a thing. Yeah.
And a bit of Bond finger every now and again?
Every now and again. We have long since run out of Bond films to do, so we mostly go around to Richard's place and get drunk and watch some 60s spy-fi shit of some kind. It's a thing.
Could you maybe do some of the more obscure books?
Oh, we can't really read and podcast, I think, is the thing. We could all sort of sit there reading, and then just you would occasionally hear someone grunt or like a little chuckle. But yeah, a commentary on a book doesn't really work quite so well.
I mean, for the people listening to the podcast, it would be the same as if you were commenting on the film, because we can't see it. So.
No, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
But, yeah, I imagine
anyway.
just going, what a witty paragraph.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, we can't put this off. Nathan, you rather sneakily avoided the mind probe last time you were on because we did a special edition quiz with the chase.
Yeah.
So Iain's been desperate to probe your mind, among other things. Iain.
Good evening, good morning, hello and welcome. Nathan, are you ready?
I am ready. Do I have to say
Okay.
no, not the mind probe like Paul Jericho, or do we take
You will
that
do. When
You can freestyle it.
when
I mean,
we-
you can use... I mean,
when we
we've had
get
some
there.
weird and wonderful...
Yeah, Christ. You've got to listen to JR. So, if you're ready, Nathan, this is time for you to face... the mind probe!
No, not the mind probe.
No, not the mind probe.
That's the reading, isn't it?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Perfect.
beautiful. Such a
It's
laconic
like Jericho was in the
delivery.
room.
Yeah.
He was in the room. He was rifling through in the back of the shop looking for biscuits. He's fallen on hard times, sadly. Nathan, satisfy the mind probe, and after the show, you'll be returned to your customary time and place. Fail the test, however, and this drooling pervert, Castellan Cockram, is literally desperate to toss you into the time lash.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a win.
Either way, yeah.
It depends if you're any good. Question 1, gentlemen. Now, these are all incredibly easy, Nathan, because we love you. Question 1. In which classic monster film did Godzilla do battle with a giant crab?
See, this is really a Brendan question because I don't know about these things, but I am going to go with, and, just bear with me on this, Godzilla versus the giant crab.
I like the way you're thinking. I know where you're coming from, but
There's
it
a logic
is it is sadly Ibira, Horror of the Deep from
so
1966.
close.
Very close. Yeah,
Very close.
I would have said Godzilla versus King Kong, but...
Yes, but you're deliberately trying to make him lose, aren't you?
Well, yes, there is that.
Question 2. Which of these book titles have I just made up? 3 of them are genuine, 1 of them is not. Your options are Night of the Crabs, Attack of the Giant Crabs, Killer Crabs The Return, or Crab Normal Behaviour.
The first one sounds like, like a sort of a memoir from the 1960s of someone discovering themselves. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking Erica Jong, Fear of Flying, and then
Yeah.
Night of the Crabs.
The zipless fuck and then the crabless fuck.
Exactly. Well, the crab full fuck, probably. I hate to think that I live in a world where the crab normal behavior is just made up rather than a real book, but I fear that is the world that we live in, so I'm going to go with the 4th one.
You are correct. Crab Normal Behaviour is a book that I just made up.
Wow,
It'll
you
be
should
the-
write it. Why don't you write
It'll
it?
be the 8th Winter Hill book. I'll get on with that very
Brilliant.
soon. Right, so question 3. Pain into Power is the new album from which Los Angeles punk band?
Well, I am picking up a crab theme here. They're a punk band. Well, like the crabs, possibly.
I like your thinking. I see where you're coming from. They are, in fact, called Terror.
Oh, damn. The least interesting part of this story's title.
Question 4. Name the 2 other classic era stories from Doctor Who, obviously, with terror in the title.
Terror of the Zygons and
there's
the Reign of Terror. Do I have to come up with another one?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I came up with 2 and I thought I'd got them all. Jesus.
No. What's the other one?
Iain.
What's the other one?
There's also
Terror of the Vervoids.
Terror of the
Vervoids.
Doesn't count.
And Autons.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
There's loads of terror. In
far too much terror.
Far too much terror, Nathan. That's 1 out of 4. No. Sorry, I'm being very silly. That's 2 out of 4. You're kind of 50-50. Let's try and tip you over the edge with a bonus question. If you're ready for the bonus question. Okay. At the time of recording, because he will be out on his arse in very early September, which senior British politician is almost certainly a Macra?
Well, he's probably riddled with crabs.
Well,
no, it's not. It's not Johnson,
isn't it? Because canonically Johnson's an Auton, isn't he? I mean, we've read that Russell short story for the for that anniversary rewatch. Is it Michael Gove?
I'd him pegged as a Slitheen.
Michael Gove is an excellent guess, and I like the way you're thinking. I can see where you're coming from. But the answer is the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Crabbe.
Oh, Dominic Crabbe.
I thought of that about 4 hours ago when I was by the pool, and I thought, I can't wait to ask you that. I've been sitting here for 4 hours.
While we're talking about your incredible jokes,
Yeah.
just slightly going off on a tangent here, was it you that came up with the dual IPA gag on your other podcast?
It was me that did that, yeah.
That I had a proper chuckle at that.
Good, I'm glad. It is largely supposed to be funny, so if people do
Well,
like
yeah.
some of the sketches,
Yeah.
that's good. So that's 1 out of 6 episodes. Great.
Well, it's not a bad strike rate.
I've seen worse.
Yeah. So does this mean Nathan's
Still there?
going to be tossed
I
off?
declare him
Being
both
tossed
free
off.
of crabs and you can't toss him.
Wow.
He's
That's
won.
disappointing.
He's defeated the mind probe, and we can't put off our conversation any longer. So let's turn our attention back to Mark Cockram, the old shaft, as we call him.
Harsh but fair. Yes, the Macra Terror. I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with this one over the years. I think I first encountered it as an audio because I didn't read that many of the Target books, and I was fairly nonplussed by it. But having gone through a bit of a rewatch when we came to the 50th, I watched the Recon, and that seemed to sort of lift it a bit. And now with the new animation that came out more recently, I've given it a bit of a reappraisal. Nathan, what was your first experience? Would it have been for FTE, or had you seen it before or experienced it before?
I did read the Target novelisation, I think. And it didn't come out till quite late, it's like 87 or something. And I think I might have heard the weird audio where they get Colin in to do it for some reason. And and I had kind of always liked it. And I think I must have watched a recon for when we did it on FTE, because I don't think that the Blu-ray was out. But I think the Blu-ray is really quite amazing, and it obviously doesn't look anything like what the show itself would have looked like, but who cares? And it's got all of the surviving footage and telly snaps and recons and stuff for people who like watching Doctor Who as a PowerPoint presentation. I think I think it's properly good, and I think it's probably unjustly overlooked, maybe.
I think it's an excellent advertisement for the benefit of having physical media. I know we've got all these great streaming services and various other methods of watching, but that is, to me, that's one of the standout things of these collections and the Blu-ray releases. You just get so much additional content as well. So for saddos like me who really like to go behind the scenes and check out all the additional stuff, I think it's well worth the money. Iain.
Hello.
Guessing this is probably your first experience, or were you a reader of the Target?
I feel so transparent. It was my first go. I didn't read the Target book. I can't even remember what it would have looked like, but I remember probably taking a quite, firm decision not to bother with it when I was 10. Obviously it's not available on BritBox over here in America, so I had to skip to our favourite website that we don't mention.
Maily Doshin.
And yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Or is it? And enjoyed the animation myself this morning. So it's very fresh.
Oh, good. So this is the Second Doctor with a fairly packed TARDIS team. So we now have Jamie, Ben and Polly. How do you rate them, Nathan, as a team? Do you like them?
Yeah, a lot. Ben, obviously. But I think I kind of fantasized that it might have been nice to have had Ben and Polly with the first Doctor a little bit longer. Because that was so brief and The Smugglers is so terrible. But
JR will be after you.
But I really like Ben and Polly. I think they're terrific. And Jamie, obviously, is a fan favourite. And I actually quite like a packed TARDIS on the whole. And there's enough room for everyone to do things. I mean, they sort of shunt Ben into a side plot for a bit so we don't get overburdened with people. But everyone seems to get something to do. And this is Polly at her most stunningly beautiful with her little Vidal Sassoon hair thing going on, which is so great. Yeah, so big fan.
I'm feeling a bit cheated that I only saw the animation now, because if that was Polly's foxiest moment, I should just quickly.
Well, you do get like a 2-second clip of her screaming at a crab.
Yeah, it's like the cliffhanger, isn't it?
If you go hunting around.
Yeah, in episode 2. It's not quite the cliffhanger, but yeah. Yeah. I think she's beautiful. Elfin, just delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've not really noticed that aspect of her performance at all. But I will, in the interest of science, I'll be looking on the internet later on.
Very selfless.
Thank you for your service. Goes out.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
But since we're on the subject of the companions already, I thought it was interesting that in this story, Polly was kind of the screamy, timid Susan kind of iteration of Polly, and not the headstrong, cocky, clever, reliant, resourceful Polly that we met early on. Craze was given some excellent work to do with being possessed, so he got to really flex his acting muscles, and Annika Wills had to go the other way and become more of a Susan.
And Jamie gets to do all the sort of heroic stuff.
Jamie did a little dance
with the crabs.
He did, yeah.
No, I felt like they weren't. I mean, some of the stories, particularly, I think of like the Davison era, when you've got that packed TARDIS and you have like Nyssa fainting for a whole story, or it's usually someone sidelined completely. I never felt like, well, at least to me, it was that obvious that they were sort of removing someone from the story. Although Ben has got this sort of mind control subplot going on, I think that works really well because it kind of just gives his character another dimension.
And I think that's the operative word, is character, because the difference with the Peter Davison TARDIS and the Troughton TARDIS is that the Troughton TARDIS has 4 characters in it. The Davison TARDIS has some people in it.
You're not going to go dissing Janet Fielding, are you?
Gosh, no, she's lovely.
No,
Yeah.
she is.
But,
And you'd be too scared, I would think, as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
She'd eviscerate me as soon as look at me. But yeah, so on the whole, I thought this was a good kind of different kind of story for the companions. But they, as a team, they are, beginning to gel. They're all getting fairly even distribution of lines and storylines by this point, so everyone gets a fair crack of the whip. And they are just a really nice, friendly gang.
I think Troughton is quite Troughton-y by this point as well.
Yeah.
Some of the very early ones, he's still kind of finding his way, whereas I feel like now he's really settled into this
I tell you what,
mischievous little character.
As I was watching, so as I already said, I was watching the animation, but there's a point where Troughton's walking along with Polly, and he just looked so knackered. I was like, yeah, he's producing so many episodes of this now that he's toned down the performance and he's just reduced to kind of shuffling along. And this was a cartoon.
They've done their research, obviously.
Clearly.
Yeah, this was quite the watershed for me as well, because I was watching the Blu-ray this week in preparation, and I may have mentioned before a few times on the podcast that our son he's 8 now, and he's starting to kind of get into nerdy stuff, and I've been so desperate for him to watch Doctor Who, but I don't, because he's quite sensitive. I don't want him to watch it and then be scared out of his wits and then not want to watch it again. And rather than saying, oh, you must watch this, I was just watching the animation, and he just happened to come downstairs while it was on, and he was like, oh, what's this? I said, oh, it's Doctor Who. So he obviously knows what Doctor Who is, because you can't move for Doctor Who tat in the house, yeah. So I explained to him what was happening in the story, and we sat and we watched the last two episodes, and then we watched the little mini animation they included as a bonus of the start of The Wheel in Space. And it might just have been that he was just really desperately trying to put off going to bed, or alternatively he actually really enjoyed them. I'm not sure which, but I was in a good place by the end of that, because it would kill me if he decided he didn't like it. So, that's not going to influence my vote at the end. But yeah, it's nice. Ian,
hello.
Would you have made your wife sit through this, or do you think she would
so
not
she
be impressed?
She was kind of walking around in the background while it was on this morning, but she was kind of making a smoothie, watering the plants on the balcony. I didn't feel like interrupting and saying, do you want to watch a cartoon about giant crabs? Because just a little voice at the back of my head said she'll hit you. She, the longer I'm out here and we're sort of settling into life together, the more I'm sadly forcing her to sit through hours of this interminable nonsense. But mainly from the other end of the show. She really likes the Capaldi era. She doesn't like the Matt Smith era. So we have a fractious relationship already, and I say it's not long for this world. But I've not tried even to really sort of point her in the direction of classic Who. I think much like an 8-year-old boy, I think a young American woman, I'm not going to say how old she is, that'd be rude apparently, is a very different creature in a very different universe to the one that we live in. And she might think.
I think
it
no
was
matter
shit.
what your age as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, very possibly.
Yeah.
But no matter what your age, I think we all have that sort of thing within us where if someone constantly is telling you, oh, it's really good, you should watch it, your instant reaction is to think, actually, no, I don't want to watch that.
Well, you see, I've never seen The Wire because everyone spent
Yeah.
most of the noughties banging on about it and saying, oh, it's better than The Sopranos. And I was like, well, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't want anything better than The Sopranos.
What put me off was that someone said, "Oh yeah, by the time you get through the second series, it
Yeah,
gets really good." I'm not going to invest
kills
2
you, doesn't
series
it?
worth of viewing.
Yeah, no, that's not an argument. If you can't come out the blocks with it.
I had someone very recently tell me that The Wire was the best TV show ever made, and I did ask them if there were any robots in it. And they said no, so I don't know.
Oh, well.
No robots, what? None at all? None?
No, not even a small one. Yeah.
From Skaro or
Nothing.
anywhere?
No.
So K9 and Company is vastly superior to The Wire.
Well, yeah. Plus it's got swingers in
strictly
it,
on
doesn't it?
And a much better theme.
Yeah, because if there's two qualities I want in a TV show, it's swingers and a really good theme tune, so that everyone in the house knows I'm watching the program about the swingers.
Yeah,
exactly. Getting back to the Macra Terror, it's a bit like herding cats. Yeah, I liked the general idea of the story. So you've got this remote colony, and outwardly everything seems perfect and everyone's happy, and it's this idyllic place where everyone does their bit and all works to make the colony a success. And then the dark underbelly of what's going on beneath starts to reveal itself. And it kind of hits you over the head with that straight away. You're not really left in any doubt that there's a problem. You've got the character Medoc, who is being chased by the space police or whatever they're calling themselves. And I like the way that sort of story starts to pan out. So the Doctor and his chums kind of effectively catch him and hand him over to the authorities. But then the Doctor has obviously twigged straight away that there's more going on than meets the eye. So it's good. It sets things up nicely.
It's our second Earth colony for the year, isn't it? Like it's and it's not somewhere that Doctor Who has really been before.
It's getting a lot sort of freer with where it goes and what it does, isn't it? It's not trying to be one forward, one sideways, one back, or this, that, or the other. It's like any old shit. It's just quick, get Ian Stuart Black to write anything at all. And I thought episode 1 in particular, and again, I've only seen the animation, I've only seen it the once, so you may both have got very different opinions, but I thought there was a real kind of claustrophobic creeping menace that built as episode 1 was unfolding. I think there were noises in the soundtrack that might have been the Macra off, and I was absolutely transfixed by it. Again, not to sort of give away where I'm going to score it, but I was absolutely spellbound.
What did we think of the guest cast in this? There are one or two standouts, I guess you could say. The pilot, he looks very familiar. And I think we might be seeing him again in another decade or so.
He's really good, isn't he? I mean, you cast Peter Jeffries because he looks kind of sinister, and he's got that great voice, and I think he's really terrific. And Terence Lodge, he's back in Carnival of Monsters, and is it Planet of the Spiders he's back? Is he one of those losers at the monastery? I think he probably is.
Chapter 3, Losers at the Monastery.
So they're pretty great. I have no idea who the guy who played Ola is, but again, awesome, kind of creepy. Yeah. And the Macra, like the control Macra, has such a fabulous posh voice. I think he's awesome.
Yeah. Very kind of Big Brother, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Sebastian. Nice to meet you.
Giving it all that. That works really well on audio, doesn't it?
I was kind of waiting for the revelation they were talking through some kind of ring modulator or something, but a reversed ring modulator, so they came out sounding human, but
no, that's his real voice. Yeah.
Hello. What's my motivation in this scene, darling? Yeah, I thought the guest cast were brilliant. I thought also, again, in the animation, it took me a few moments to twig it was Peter Jeffries. I assumed that they'd made the pilot just look a bit like David Cameron. He had this kind of bland,
wow, that's a bit harsh,
gammon-y kind of thing going on. Just in the first couple of postures where you see him, he's it's not so good. But I thought he was wonderful, and as you say, he's got an amazing voice, hasn't he? It's very you're primed for him to be the ultimate evil, and he never is, which is disappointing.
Well, you get that hint that there's something not quite right just by the the music that they constantly play over the tannoy, that I must admit, the first time I listened to the audio, I found that incredibly grating. But I guess that's the point of it. But...
Well, I think to quote the Doctor, it was very gay, wasn't it? I mean, it
Very
just gave the
gay
story.
and
He mentions
cheerful.
it a couple of times, doesn't he?
Gay and cheerful.
Yeah.
I thought it really. I don't know how much it was supposed to be a dig at kind of American TV shows or American culture, but it really captured that kind of mindless. Actually, I shouldn't be rude, should I? Can we cut that?
You're going to get sent back to Blighty very soon, Ian, at this rate.
Yeah, don't let my employers hear this. It really captured that kind of saccharine kind of positivity. And you can imagine that a colony like that, should you ever lie there at night imagining a colony like that, you imagine it would have to have a certain amount of that kind of social engineering going on just to keep everyone from going stark staring mad.
It's hard to work out what they're doing with the colony. Like, is it like sort of totalitarian Russia with a secret police and curfews and certain things that can't be said and but then why all the sort of weird radio jingles and stuff like that, which doesn't seem that
Enforced
way at all. Yeah. And like Ian Stuart Black has sort of done this before, hasn't he, with the Savages? So again, you have this sort of idyllic society, and then you get the reveal that they're feasting on the Savages, aren't they?
Does like a bit of mind control as well.
And I guess it's easy to underestimate how important Ian Stuart Black is to the history of the show, because I think it's the Savages that's the first time that the Doctor brings down an oppressive regime, and the final scene has him like smashing up the machines and saying how much he enjoys kind of tearing down a system. And then here the same sort of thing happens. There's this regime which we discover has this horrific secret at the heart of it, or at the control center, or the brain, or whatever, and the Doctor works to bring it down. And in both of them there are hints at a specific kind of oppression, like it's racial, I guess, in the Savages, and here maybe it's totalitarian, but like I think this works awfully well for capitalism as well. Everyone is encouraged to be happy and jolly and do their work, get up, work, enjoy their work, but they're just making stuff and shoveling it in the direction of some posh arsehole, like it.
What do you imagine the day-to-day work in that place is? Because I mean, I know they a lot of them like to hang around near the old shaft. We've covered that.
Well,
Apart from that, I mean, so there's mining. Is there presumably someone's growing some vegetables? There's a bit of agriculture, maybe, or do they just eat
quite a bit
pills?
of dancing going on? Yeah.
Dancing, is that really? Can you monetize that? Is that a revenue stream, really?
Well, I don't know.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak, he's looking for it. Can we make people dance for money? Apart from Fraser Hines, obviously, because the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of, again, based on the animation, it's a kind of huge metal citadel on top of a rocky structure. Doesn't really give you much idea what it's there for, what it does, what life's like in there, apart from everyone has these great dance routines and, has a jolly time working very hard.
Yeah, I just think you can't... the premise is so paper thin that, you push it and it falls to pieces. I mean, all of their work seems to be... it seems to be dedicated to getting the poison gas to the crabs in the colony's brain. But there's no... But that's all anyone ever does, so God knows how they're eating or making the clothes or whatever. Who's building the house? I don't know. Who cares? But it is one of those things where it's set up to make a point and doesn't actually work in any real sense as a credible colony. But, it's Doctor Who.
I was going to say it's much like the Death Star. You don't get a lot of kind of backstory or the logistics of how the Death Star works, who's the operations director, that kind of thing. But then again, if he'd put it in the prequel trilogy, you would have got an entire 2-hour movie about the HR department on the Death Star.
I mean, Eddie Izzard does a very good routine about the canteen.
Yes,
So,
Death Star canteen.
So this is basically just Doctor Who getting there first with this kind of silly space location, which doesn't bear much textual analysis.
No. But I guess it's funny, isn't it, that The Prisoner doesn't come out for a couple of years, and it's that sort of thing as well, where you've got this incredible artificial environment, there's mind control, there's sort of enforced jollity, everything's fake, it doesn't work as a proper sensible premise in any way, but it doesn't matter. You know, it's all about the atmosphere.
I thought it worked really well. I thought there was a very creepy atmosphere when you see the companions sleeping and you've got the disembodied voice speaking through the tannoy and the gas kind of coming through, and I thought that worked pretty well. I thought that was quite creepy.
Why does the Doctor get his own room and then the other three are all in the same room?
That's because he's the leading actor, isn't he?
I suppose.
He's the star.
His own trailer. I actually wondered whether they were originally in different rooms, because there were some things that seemed like they didn't match the animation quite, as if I don't know, the boys were sleeping in one room and Polly had her own room or something originally. I can't remember. It must be in the... And that's the scene where, of course, Jamie is tossing restlessly, which...
he really is.
Yeah. Which Colin says... Is it Colin says it on the audio soundtrack?
Did that part of the audio tape get worn out quite quickly?
Yeah, it did. I listened over and over again. Yeah.
Could you hear him moaning about the Piper at any point? Is that what was happening? Because actually, if you think about Billy Piper, I've often laid it.
I
actually cut that bit.
Isn't that funny? We were complaining about the 80s Doctor Who TARDIS team being sidelined. This is building an android or fainting or whatever. Yeah. But Jamie spent a fair amount of Moonbase tossing restlessly, didn't he, rather than actually participating in the action.
In fairness, I don't think he was actually in the original script, was he?
I
think it was a case that we've just got to shove him somewhere so that he doesn't get in the way.
By the time we get to the 80s, there's no excuse for making any of those characters into an afterthought. They've all been very deliberately placed within the context of that TARDIS, and we're now very close to going off on a rant about Eric Saywood. Why is it so hard to stay on track with these things?
Never ever that far away, are they? Those rants.
The looming menace of 1981 onwards. Oh, terrible. Maybe there was this kind of sense in the production office or the BBC that we don't put the Doctor with the younger people in bed rooms, because that'd be weird, and it's all very no hanky-panky in the TARDIS kind of mentality. Then again, Troughton's the star. He probably has that on his rider. I get my own room, even in a space station. So, there's a number of reasons, and any of them would make sense. So, I suppose we really better talk about the Macra.
Yes, I think in the animation, they're probably somewhat more nimble than they would have been in the original transmission.
This is very much my concern, Mark. I feel like I got the good end of the stick, and that some viewers may have got less excellent.
As is often the case, when you look at the still photos of the prop, they look really impressive. But you do wonder just how much that's going to translate to a moving image.
I think the ones in the animation are great, and I'm glad that they redesigned them for it. And they still look sort of slightly crappy, like they are nimble, but they do move like just a sort of big object, and like the eyes look like they've been realized as sort of light bulbs on stalks and stuff. So there's a
Paradise
sort of
Towers.
I got a real kind of pool cleaner vibe from, actually the original ones look like the pool cleaner, I think, and like the original ones are like a Mini Cooper or something dressed up as a crab. Is that it? Like it's something like that.
I went out with her once.
Car,
They have sort of they've got a kind of pubic, like, you know, like, I don't want to bring things down, lower the tone, but they're furry in a sort of unpleasantly pubic sort of way, I think, the original ones. And, like, I did watch the surviving footage from the cliffhanger to episode 1. Am I dreaming that? Is that real? And fortunately, they're still in the dark. They don't really reveal too much. But I have to think they don't look really good. That scene where, you know, one grabs Polly by the ankle and is sort of dangling her upside down, which is really great, where she was just sort of there screaming while, you know, some polystyrene things kind of flailed vaguely in her vicinity. Like, I don't think they look very good, and I'm sure that they would be charming as hell to watch if we actually had more of them. It would have been tremendous. But yeah, I think the animators made the right decision.
I think also in part 4, where Jamie is kind of cornered by 2 or 3 of them, and he, if you'll forgive the expression, he beats them off. He made quite light work of that in the animation, so I imagine in the studio it would have been absolutely risible.
Because there's one on the ceiling and stuff. Like, they do all sorts of really fabulous things. And in the control room, where there's a whole heap of them, and then there's the big giant one who's surrounded by... What is he surrounded by? They look like piles of rocks.
It's like piles of rock,
Yeah.
Or maybe they're like droppings.
Well, that was how I was reading it, I have to say. I was trying to find a tasteful way of bringing that up. But, yeah. He's probably been sat
at
there
the risk
for a
of sounding
while.
like Alan Partridge, does anyone know if crabs do poos? Can we get a crab expert? Does anyone know if crabs do poo?
Now, Nathan, you said that the animators made the right choice. I feel like now is possibly the time to bring up something that was omitted. Do you think that was the right choice?
So
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I actually had a chat with Brendan about this, and I think that scene is kind of important because we arrive in the colony, and straight away the colony tries to sort of impose its standards of order and decorum on everyone. And so I don't know if you know this, Iain. There's a scene where... You know, there's a scene in episode 1 where they kind of offer massages and, I don't know, Reiki and shit. I can't remember. But, like, relaxation things. Yeah. And that actually goes into a scene where they're put in a cleaner clothes thing. And that's the thing that does Polly's hair, because her hair's long at the beginning, I think. And so that's the thing that gives her the haircut. Apparently she got in terrible trouble for getting that haircut during her week off or something, and she came back with an absolutely stunningly marvellous, you know, very now 60s haircut and got yelled at by the production team. But anyway, they put them in this machine, and so Troughton comes out looking spick and span with all of his clothes clean and pressed, and there's no visual, we have nothing, do we? There's no photo of that.
I don't think so.
No. And, you know, presumably his tie's straight and his trousers are pressed and his hair's all sorted and stuff like that. And then he goes bugger that and gets into the massage machine, which then sort of, you know, like gets his clothes back to and hair back to its usual state. And, you know, that sort of conformity that the colony inflicts on everyone, and then the Doctor's immediate rebellion against that is kind of... You know, like, it's thematically important, because the Doctor will go around breaking things, smashing their machinery, breaking the law, saying that bad laws are made to be broken, like constantly undermining this place that has this sort of conformity. So I think it's important thematically. However, if we can't see the real footage, then who gives a shit? You know, like, what? We would have got to see a drawing of them doing that? Well, who cares? You know, what I really want is for episode 1 to be rediscovered, because that's the thing that I want to see, maybe even more than Power of the Daleks episode 1. I want to see what that looked like.
Yeah, I think season 4 is a strange one, because you've got this mid-season regeneration, and you've got a relatively new production team going about things in a different way, and I think this feels like they've really settled into their routine now, and they kind of know what they're doing. Would you agree? Or
Yeah, I think so. I think that this stuff, like, I'm not a big fan of Series 5 the following year. I think they just remake the same show over and over again, with an eye to the American market possibly, but it does become a bit tedious. But here they are trying new things, and I think, like, I really, really properly think that Ian Stuart Black he has been important in that, because he's the one who invents the idea that people might have heard of the Doctor. He's the one who has the Doctor pulling down oppressive systems. He's got an interest in mind control. These are all his sort of things, and they're also very period, aren't they? They're very 1967. And so while the surrounding stories are all great, with the possible exception of the Highlanders, which is terribly tedious. Oh, apart from Ben in a wet shirt. I'm up for wet shirt. Ben in a wet shirt. Like, it seems to be really now, doesn't it? Like, this episode seems really contemporary, and we're going to have like the moon base is absolutely timely, the faceless ones, all of these things are speaking to really kind of modern sensibilities. And early Doctor Who was so much more sort of storybook, and so much more it was old fashioned, and
you could imagine having watched this and changing channels and watching the Avengers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just to pepper your very interesting conversation with my inane crap, the last 2 or 3 stories have really gone up a gear for me, and I feel like the show is in a real groove now, and it is a groove of, we can do what we like, we can go where we want to go. We've kind of cast off the shackles and limitations of what the show began as and how it evolved, and this is great. This is unexpectedly vintage stuff. I'm seeing, obviously, for the first time, because I'm an idiot.
It's that Doctor, like, just this Doctor, like, Hartnell's great in The Savages and is having real fun smashing the control room up at the end. Like, he's really properly enjoying himself, and he's obviously much more fun and silly and sweet than he gets credit for being. But Troughton is perfect. This is kind of the beginning of the man who drops from the sky and tears down your world. This is him. He just sort of turns up. He flits around at the margins. He doesn't make a big deal of himself, and then he just sort of swoops in at the end and it overthrows a evil tyrannical regime. It's just terrific stuff, and he's so good in that role.
Yeah. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed Hartnell, and it was quite a revelation just watching those stories back. But this feels very much like the kind of intergalactic Sherlock Holmes who comes in and he's kind of always one step ahead of the bad guys, and he's kind of figuring it out. And
I think also Troughton is sorry, I just spoke all over you. I'm so rude. Troughton's, I think, the least imposing of the Doctors. Any of them are capable. I mean, 3 and 4 are 8 feet tall and looming over everyone, and Colin's got his own larger dimensions. But Troughton's just a little scruffy guy.
Yeah.
Who just sort of twinkles quietly, and there's something terrifying in that, and there's something very, very Sylvester as well, I think.
Yeah. That scene where Sylvester becomes the Doctor in Paradise Towers, where he's got the rule book and he's talking the guards through it, and you have Troughton doing the same thing here, saying that you can't arrest us because we've just turned ourselves in, and that's against the rules.
And against the rules.
Yeah,
yes.
we captured Medoc, and so it's all right if I just set him free because now we're even, or whatever. Like, he does all of that, and his absolute disregard and disrespect for the rules is a thing that the Doctor will stay with most future Doctors, and it's so essential to the character, and it's Troughton who brings it.
No, I'm really enjoying his Doctor. I mean, since I can remember, I've always liked Troughton's Doctor. But Yeah, seeing them in the order, I don't know, it just gives it a different perspective, and you can see his character just kind of falling into place. And I'm really, really enjoying it.
It's that moment in the Underwater Menace when you see him actually moving really for the first time.
Yeah.
You're not just watching animations
Yeah.
or slideshows and stuff. And you just think, like, Underwater Menace is whatever, but he's electric. You know, he's just so tremendous immediately. And seeing, like, I would love to see him in this. Listening to his vocal performance is great, but, you know, actually seeing him do this would just be magic, I think.
I mean, they do a great job with these animations, but I've said this many times, and I'm not the first to say it, half of what Troughton brings is that kind of the business, the visual stuff that you're not going to see in the animation. That when we had that episode of Underwater Menace that came back, and he's doing that business where he kind of taps the side of his head to make out that he's crazy, and it just... little things like that you wouldn't have known in the audio only.
Yeah.
And you just imagine what else is going on that we haven't seen.
He's got such a mobile face. It's so expressive, and we really miss that, I think.
Is there anything else we want to talk about on the story?
So straight away, I have I'm coming up with many ideas for these kind of expanded universe, multiverse kind of spin-off series that Russell T Davies could do.
Oh, yes.
My latest one is, now I've got my notes here, it's called The Danger Gang. Now, who'd watch a TV show called The Danger Gang?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Brilliant. It's just three guys going down a mine shaft. I haven't really fleshed out the title, but that's the kind of how it starts.
Okay.
And then probably that'd be good.
You wonder how well that works in a job advert, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how many applicants you get for a job. You know, foreman, the Danger Gang.
You'd be sitting there in the interview, and you'd be like, "Can I just ask where you've put Danger Gang? Is that mild danger? Is that regular danger? Is that 8 hours a day of peril? I mean, because this salary doesn't really look commensurate with danger. This, I'd want more money."
You wonder about their workplace health and safety people. Maybe they've probably been brainwashed by the Macra. That's poison gas, but it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just smoking some poison gas. Yeah, right. It'd be great. Yeah, have a laugh. Yeah.
Ian, did you watch it in colour or black and white? This is an important question.
I watched it in colour.
Yeah, I did too, because I'm a monster. And, like, it's not fucking Shakespeare, it's fine.
Exactly.
But the green poison gas was just awesome. And I feel very sorry for all the people who saw it on first broadcast, where the poison gas was just a sort of vague white or whatever. The green just absolutely sold it for me.
Green is alien, it's menacing, it's got a powerful semiotic voodoo, whereas just white smoke is probably the floor manager having a fag at the side of camera 2. It's not the same.
One of the Dalek casings off screen has caught fire because people are smoking in it in the studio.
Has anyone got any Rizzler?
I really like it in colour. I think, why not? And they usually give you the option of a colour or black and white.
Yeah.
So, what's not to like?
No, I think that's charming. I think that's terribly sweet. I don't know why they don't just get the people who want to watch it in black and white to just turn the saturation down on their telly, but whatever.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, but maybe it's slightly different. But yes, I watch it in colour because I'm a monster and I don't care about, seeing it in the original form.
Quick question for you, Nathan. How confident are you that you could go up to your television set right now and alter the saturation?
It would take maybe a good half an hour, I think.
Yeah. And Google and swearing and more coffee. Yeah.
I think you're underestimating Nathan there.
I don't think I am. I think he would. I think he's a god that walks as a man. But But also, tellies now are
Yeah,
bloody complicated.
You know, yesterday I read something that said that the reason that your iPhone is so fascinating to you is the dopamine hit you get from all the colours. And so I experimentally turned my phone into black and white, which is a thing that I didn't realise you could do for accessibility reasons.
No.
Yeah, it changed my life. I got a lot done.
How do you do
done.
that?
Wow.
It's in accessibility.
Going to the accessibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's for colourblind people.
No, and it has various things to make colorblind people be able to see properly. But the completely black and white one, the phone suddenly became super dull, and I had no choice but to become extremely productive for the entire. I've switched it off now, obviously.
Well, that sounds terrible. Yeah, I mean, Ian's now.
Yeah, he's doing
to
it.
turn his phone into black and white.
I have, but unfortunately, my phone's now gone back to 1966 settings.
Yes.
So it only works for 25 minutes every Saturday afternoon.
And it's got a rotary dial on the front, which is a bit tricky.
It's easy to deal with than accidentally setting the language to Thai, because there's no way out of that. Because you can't see what the language setting is anymore. Like, you know, you've set it to Portuguese and you've got a fair chance of guessing what the word for language is, but Thai, it's a problem.
Or Latin. I mean, that would be quite an easy one for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I think we've chatted for long enough. Why don't we give this mother a rating? And we'll come to our beautiful guest Nathan first. What are you going to give it out of 10?
Well, I'm famous for not giving things ratings out of 10.
Yes.
That's a thing that I won't do. But I would say that this is considerably better. Like, watching this is considerably better than, like, eating crab. Because, like, crab... Like, crab's a lot of effort, isn't it? Like, you've got these things, you've got to, like, suck on the exoskeleton, which is super upsetting to me. I came into the kitchen the other day and my husband had, like, there was a crab, you know, belly up on the table, and he'd stuck a giant metal spike in it. So there's kind of murder and violence involved. And the meat...
It's all a bit grim.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can get quite a lot out of a cow without sucking on its exoskeleton.
Yeah. And they're bottom feeders as well. So
And
really disgusting
I don't think
stuff.
they taste particularly impressive. They taste like someone's got some paper and waved a prawn at it for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that paper
showed it a picture of a prawn. No, it does seem like a lot of effort to go to for very, very minimal results, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say it was better than that. And I would say also that it's incredibly important to the show. It's what the show ends up being like. And, you know, like I was talking to my friend Joe Ford, my fellow podcaster Joe Ford, about it, and he said that the last 2 episodes were generic, but in a way they're only generic in retrospect, because that's where the show ends up going. It hasn't been there before. And so this is hugely important to where the show ends up. And when the show ends up being about someone who travels through time and brings down the government all the time, you know, that's superb. That's so much more interesting a premise than, you know, they land somewhere, something falls in front of the door, hijinks ensue for a couple of hours, they get the thing out of the front of the door and then all go away. Like, bring down the government every time. It's a brilliant conception of the show. So... does that answer the question?
I mean, that's you were very eloquent, but when we come to do our end of season reviews, you know, this story falls behind
I'll give it a
the others, 'cause we're only going to have.
Always gone high.
Yes. Go big or go home. Ian, what would you like to give this one out of 10?
So, as I said earlier, we're in the middle of a really strong run of stories. This one is a hugely entertaining political allegory with a docile population being brainwashed and gaslit by a craven, cowardly governmental regime who, offering no solution to society's clear and present environmental threats, instead bury their heads in the sand and pretend there's nothing wrong. And anyone who can see through the lies and dare to speak out is labelled a madman and ostracised. Kind of a parallel. I'm going a strong 7.
7? I mean, the irony is that we're recording this in the height of the British summer, and I'm, wearing very little. Sorry,
Are we trying to get an explicit tag, Mark?
But
I've got
the chances are this will probably go out in the height of winter, where most people are going to be struggling to pay their fuel bills because someone decided it'd be better for multi-millionaires to be multi-billionaires rather than...
If only we were part of a really large trading bloc of countries that were sort of regulating this. If only the British people were. Anyway.
So will they even have the internet in the future? Like when this goes out, won't Liz Truss have accidentally unplugged something or?
Well, just to be on the safe side, if you can give me your postal address, and I'll work out a way of getting a carrier pigeon to you just in case.
Yeah.
Burn it on disk and just send everyone a disk. We'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Well, I am gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I think the animation just takes it up another notch again. I know it's possibly not going to be the most true to the original vision that you saw on screen if you were lucky enough to see it the first time round, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's going to be an 8 for me. So that's what we thought of the Macra Terror. Let's get some listener feedback.
I've got mail.
Okay, well, let's see what you've got to say about the Macra Terror. So first up from me, we have heard from David Kitchen on Twitter. And David says, a really underrated adventure with lots going on. Ben's brainwashing is really effective, and the Macra are a suitably creepy monster. Many memorable moments. How often do fans quote, "There's no such thing as Macra"? I think you'll find quite a lot if you listen to the feedback. Only downside is the ending is a bit of a mess, but I love it. Thank you, David. And we have heard from Andy Taylor at Bodge77. Andy writes, always enjoyed this ever since the 90s Colin Baker narrated audio came out. It's very underrated, and I don't think the animation helped. While the huge landscapes may look nice, they're not really in keeping with the times, and leaving out the rough and tumble machine part is poor. He's a traditionalist, is our Andy. Yeah. Next up, we have heard from James Courtney. And James says, weird that you asked us to comment on a story and then don't give us a story title. I think he's going for the old meta sort of no such thing as Macra there. Thank you, James. And we've also heard from Lucy McCall. And Lucy writes, I like it, and I wish there was more surviving footage. The hidden and denied menace is well done, as is the happy place with a dark secret. Yeah, that's a good point. And lastly from me, we have heard from Jenny Shirt. And Jenny says, but there's no such thing as Macra. Thank you, Jenny. And before we go over to Iain, we have something from the genius that is known as Andy Moore.
Inside the Andy Moore writer's room.
Right, you horrible lot! Stop typing! Macra Terror, what do you got for me? Benjamin!
How about... You'd love to do some feedback on the Macra Terror, but you can't, because there's no such thing as Macra.
No such thing as Macra. Benjamin, what do we say about going Route 1?
We never ever go Route 1.
Yeah. And what do you think there's no such thing as Macra is?
Route 1?
Next, Charlie. Don't fuck it up.
How about something having a dig at all the people who got worked up about the stuff that was missing from the animation?
Next.
How about something about catching crabs?
Right, so what you're saying is you want me to do something about pubic lice.
Yeah, but it'd be really funny pubic lice, because they'd be really big, right?
This is giving me no pleasure at all, lads, but you know what? It's the only way you'll learn. Next.
How about the holiday camp angle? You could put on Welsh accents, go all hidey-high. You could maybe make some reference to Philip Maddock, even, because, you know...
Hello, chaps. Listen, I'd love to give you some feedback on the Macra Terror, but I can't because there's no such thing as Macra. Cheers!
Thank you, Andy. Up to your usual standard, of course.
He's right. It is a struggle to be anything other than Route One when you're faced with a story with villains like this.
Crabs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iain, who have you heard from?
Well, so firstly, we've heard from our dear old friend and sometime contributor Matt Barber, who responded to your call. If you remember, you tweeted out, what did you think of this story? Mr. Barber has replied thusly: Bing, bong, bingly bong, bingy bingy bong, bingly bingly bong. Those are his thoughts.
Yes.
He's really come on a long way from that sort of
He
shy,
really has, yeah.
clueless idiot who first got in touch with us. He's now one of our more erudite interlocutors. So thank you for that.
Yeah, excellent.
We've
Thanks, Matt.
also heard from the Randomizer podcast, who...
Oh, it's a great show.
Oh, I love the Randomizer podcast. It's a very comfy Sunday afternoon, slippers and bit of sofa kind of show. Lovely. They say, brilliant and chilling story, shades of Happiness Patrol. Yep. Or rather, that has shades of this. Ben under mind control is genuinely disturbing, and the monsters are cool. Glad they returned in Gridlock, albeit briefly. Yeah, we didn't talk about Gridlock, but...
No.
I seem to remember, are you a fan of that one, Nathan?
I love Gridlock. It's absolutely one of my favourite Doctor Who stories ever. And it is one of those things where you've got this world that's constructed to, make a philosophical point, and it has monsters in it. And a hymn. Good old Protestant hymn. So I'm here for it. And it's included as a special feature on the Blu-ray. So
Is it?
Yeah.
Good Lord. These Blu-rays of which you speak really do sound awfully good. Maybe I should...
It's literally a recording of anyone who has ever said the word Macra can be found on that Blu-ray.
Christ. Tom Turlow has been in touch with us. Again, in response to the question, what do you think of the Macra Terror? He says, trust me, assuming we'll live long enough to see you reach the Tom Baker years, some Doctor Who I've actually watched, I'll be reviewing away each week like a motherfucker. In the meantime, may you continue doing God's work. I love the podcast.
Well, thank you, Tom.
That's lovely, isn't it? Thanks, Tom. I wonder if he's actually related to Vislaw Turlow.
Oh, could be.
And finally, Hayden Gribble, who says, brace yourself, guys. There's no such thing as Macra. A fun adventure, greatly helped in its popularity by the most gorgeous animation to date. 7 out of 10.
Marvellous. Before we go to Nathan, we've had some feedback from Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
We watched some Doctor Who together, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I really liked it.
Yeah, because you haven't seen any before, have you?
No.
Do you remember much about what happened?
Well, I thought the crabs were being slaves, but the humans were being slaves.
Yeah. So the crabs were secretly in charge, weren't they?
Yeah. And now I know the green gas is good for the crabs and bad for humans.
Yeah. And did you like the Doctor?
Yeah. I like his friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a bit weird, wasn't it? Because one of them was being controlled.
Controlled by the crabs.
Yeah. But then he came back to being good again, didn't he? In the end?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Did you find the crabs a bit scary, or they're okay? Not too bad?
No, not too bad. Scary, they weren't. Not scary.
So they were scary enough, but not too scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you like it enough that you might want to watch another one sometime?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And because you didn't see all the episodes, I suppose it's a bit hard to really judge it, but if you had to score it out of 10, what would you give it out of 10?
20.
Wow!
Yeah, I'm going over the scale because I really, really like it.
Oh, that's good. Right. Well, thanks very much for letting us know what you think, Tom.
Yeah.
We'll speak to you again soon, I expect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, it's time for some audio from our friend Ben Schneider down in Indiana.
Hello, Mark and Ian. This is Ben Schneider from South Indiana, USA. My favorite thing about the Macra happens early in episode 3, when this happens.
It's hard for you to struggle against the voices, isn't it, Ben?
Finally, somebody gets me!
Thanks, Ben. And Nathan, who have you heard from?
Well, I've heard from Tony Cross, who very tersely tells us that it's 1984 meets Heidi High. It's pretty fun. I think that's quite good. We could just cut everything else, the whole other hour that we've just done, and just leave people with that, I think.
I think what he's done there is he's confused Medoc with Ruth Maddock.
Easily done.
Easily done.
Yeah. All right, and now I have Camo Hat Man, who says, love this story. I don't know whether that's a command or an enthusiastic kind of recommendation, but the Big Brother concept used is one of the best utilizations of the idea in the show's history. The soundtrack is a big highlight as well. That's true. And every character has a role to play, and they all do it greatly. And brace yourselves, there's no such thing as Macra. Yeah, there we
I'm
go.
going to start getting my cigarette lighter out every time.
We need a horn, like a horn, for whenever anyone says that.
Oh, well.
All right, and now I have an Australian, would you believe? So,
Goodness me.
Yes. So this is Philip Edney from Sirens of Audio. Annika Wills and Michael Craze deserve awards for being able to look terrified of slow-moving cars coming towards them. Unfortunately, I suspect we miss all the best bits by not being able to view this lost episode. Patrick Troughton being washed and dried, classic. I'm sure that's a Pornhub category by now. And then finally, contributor to Flight Through Entirety, Simon Moore. Well, he's a host, really, at this point. Would be great to have an app back of this one. The still image of the Big Brother-esque controller with the repeated and increasingly hysteric "there is no such thing as Macra" is chilling. It's the happiness patrol of its day, a contrast to the more straight-laced Moonbase.
Very good points there. Thank you all so much for your feedback. It's great to hear from you. And if you would like to get in touch and give us your thoughts on a forthcoming story, we'll be listing all the various ways and means over our end credits. So before we give Nathan the chance to plug his plethora of podcasts, we are going to do our little bit where we do our recommendations for listeners.
Oh, lovely.
And shall we start with Nathan? What would you like to recommend for our listeners?
So this is a story that is in part about tricking people into enjoying their work in various meretricious ways. And so I'm going to recommend a TV show on Apple TV Plus called Severance.
Okay. Yeah.
Which stars Patricia Arquette and Christopher Walken's in it as well. The main guy is... I can't remember the actor's name. Andy something. He is in The Good Place and Parks and Rec, but I can't remember the actor's name. But it's set in a sort of Black Mirror-esque alternative present where people undergo a procedure called severance, which means that when they're at work, they can only remember ever being at work, and when they're at home, they don't remember being at work. And so it has all these sort of weird things to say about work and working in an office and identity and all sorts of things, but it's also beautifully designed and directed. It's directed by Ben Stiller. It's uproariously funny, and it's a really, really proper kind of techno thriller. I've just absolutely kind of binged it in a couple of sittings. It's really, really properly good, and maybe the best thing I've watched all year. Apart from, obviously the Macra and Legend of the Sea Devils.
Well, at least you've watched it. Bad fan.
You'll be fine, really.
Thank you, Nathan. I am going to go next, and as is my way, because I'm very close to hitting the milestone of being 50 in a few months' time, I am well behind the curve on most pop culture these days. I used to be quite hip and cool and into all the latest music trends and stuff, and now I'm just a bit of a sad old man who, likes to listen to his 90s indie and stuff like that. But I've discovered an artist. I did one of those things, you go onto YouTube and you start to go down that rabbit hole of watching various videos, and you link to the next one. And I was watching this really interesting Q&A with a whole bunch of famous people who were talking about Prince just after he had died. And there was Spike Lee, the movie director, and there were a few other quite notable names there. And there was a woman singer called Kimbra, who till that point I was completely unaware of. And she hails from New Zealand, so not too far away from you, Nathan. And she is hard to sort of pigeonhole into a particular kind of genre. The album I've listened to the most is called The Golden Echo, and she kind of spans all the kind of various musical trends, from R&B to pop to almost jazz, and getting into sort of avant-garde stuff as well, and some of the sounds that she's using. She talks in some videos about being inspired by people like Prince, obviously, and Björk and all these other artists. And I've really enjoyed that album. So yeah, that's The Golden Echo, and that's by Kimbra. And Iain, who have you?
Sorry, I'm just downloading that. I'm so suggestible. I'm
I'm looking at her Wikipedia page. She's magnificent. Look at her.
She really is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I am still a long way away from that particular milestone. I am still very much down with the kids. And I'm going to mention someone who's got a single out at the moment.
Okay.
I've been a fan for a few years now, but a guy called Trevor Sensor. He's from Illinois, and he sings like an evil gnome trapped at the bottom of a well. There is a kind of Dylan thing going on, but I infinitely prefer him to Dylan. And he's just put out a double A side of songs called In a Cadillac Hearse and How to Find Love in a Place Like This, both of which are very different songs, but both of which are really very, very lovely.
Well, that's marvellous. So that's something for you all to check out when you're taking a break from the great journey, if you're following along with us. Nathan, before you disappear, would you like to give a plug to your massive stable of podcasts that you've got now?
Yes, so the original one is Flight to Entirety, which we've been doing since 2013 or something. And we started, it's an odd premise. I don't know if you've ever considered it. We started watching Doctor Who from the beginning and then podcasted in order through the stories. Yeah.
How original.
Yeah, no, it's a thing worth considering. And we are currently, well, at the time of recording, we are about to launch into Series 7B. So that's 2013. So we will have done 50 years of podcasting.
A tad ahead of us.
A little bit ahead. And then we have Untitled Star Trek Project, which I've mentioned before. I have put up on the internet a randomizer that lets you just pick Star Trek episodes at random. And so Joe...
Can I say I listened to your episode on Spock's brain?
Were we cruel?
That was infinitely
cruel
more
but fair.
It's infinitely more fun than watching the episode.
It's
Spock's
really
brain.
boring. I wanted it to be fun, but it was just boring. So that's Untitled Star Trek Project. We have Bondfinger, where we slur our way drunkenly through all the Bond films and various Avengers episodes and other, as I said before, 60s spy-fi shit. And Jodie into Terror, which was our flashcast where we gave our ill-considered first reactions to episodes of the new series with Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Have I forgotten one? Oh, Maximum Power, which I don't run.
Yes.
So it's the thing that I think about last. Everyone from FDE has at some point guested on it, pretty much, and lots of lovely people from England as well. And
yes,
at the time of recording, again, we've recorded all of Series B but not released it. So perhaps you, dear listener, live in a terrifying future dystopia where all 13 Series B episodes of Maximum Power are available to download.
Well, that's marvellous. So if you enjoyed listening to Nathan's thoughts on Doctor Who, you've got a whole bunch of different options there to keep listening. Thank you so much for joining us again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
So next time out, we'll be stopping off at the airport for some duty-free and a Toblerone.
Toblerone.
It's Italian. Yeah.
So thank you all for listening, and until next time, I was Mark.
I was the old Shaft.
And I'm Nathan.
If you'd like to get in touch, you can email us at mailbagofrassilon@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter @TimeEndSpacePod, and you can also find us on Facebook. If you want to leave some audio feedback, there is a link in the show notes. You can use your phone or your computer and leave up to 60 seconds of feedback, or if you're listening via the Anchor website, you can click on the message button and leave your audio. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you to Momo Tempo for providing our theme music.